Welcome. This is my final presentation for Human Resource Management and Employee Wellness. Today we're going to touch on the subject of employees and a few things in relation to their exiting processes. So first, for this final project, we were assigned an article to review, which was Turning Departing Employees into Loyal Alumni. In this article, they talk about some of the processes that take place when an employee is transitioning out of a company or organization and how those processes affect both the employee and the company. It talks about how there's usually a lot of time and resources spent in bringing in new hires, what with recruitment and training and retention, but by comparison, there's usually little to no effort going into an employee's exiting processes. Part of the article highlights a statistic by the Bureau of Labor that says the average tenure of an American worker at the time of this article was about 4.1 years. Based on this statistical average, we can surmise that each worker is going to make a job transition at least 4 or 5 times in their professional lifetime, and maybe even more. This alone would give the professional world a reason to pay attention to how these employees are being handled through these multiple transitionary periods. In the article, this quote was near the end of the article, but it kind of summarized the entire article to me. So what happens when an employee leaves? They don't just cease to exist. They're still out there. In relation to my field of public service, this likely means that they're no longer an employee, but might become part of the public that we do serve. If they live within my district, they're still a tax-paying constituent, so they are still owed something. This quote also means to me the idea that offboarding shouldn't just be something that happens and then requires a reaction, but instead should be a planned-out part of the employment process from the beginning. The article also covers the concept of a customer service mindset. Having this sort of mindset can help manage or mitigate problems, including turnover. Something that I liked in the article was where it talked about the company Booz Allen Hamilton, and they used their data of former employees to fill short-term, temporary, and project-based staffing needs. It also talked about Chevron doing this same sort of thing in filling contract positions. I've heard of places of employment that will outright refuse to consider you for future positions if you have previously quit, or they won't accept an application if they've previously offered you a job and you couldn't take it for some reason. And I'm sure these places that do this have, what they feel are legitimate reasons, but at the same time, people remember these. They remember things like these, and they'll talk about it to people they know. So to an outside observer, it just looks like poor customer service, and I think that little things like that could definitely hurt a company's reputation, and it makes sense to avoid things like this, when at all possible. These were just some of the key points I took from the article. Having resources like these are good tools to have if you want to maintain a good professional relationship with people, and then helping them out in various ways is a good way to do this. We talked about the subject of non-disclosures and non-competes. I agree with part of the article that off-boarding policies like these can sometimes have a negative effect on the employees who are leaving. It kind of gives the air of mistrust between the company and the worker. An employee might feel resentful that they are legally bound to keep their opinion of their former employer to themselves. One might think that if the company has done nothing wrong throughout the course of this relationship, then they wouldn't need to implement a non-disclosure in the first place. That's just me playing devil's advocate, and that's just pure conjecture. Offboarding and exit interviews. I think throughout these processes it's important to keep the documentation of exit processes uniform and standardized, especially if you're going to compile the data from that. It needs to be consistent and weighted the same throughout the documentation phase. Um, in part of this article, a person was talking about his goal was not to his goal in this was not to retain every single employee, but to treat people respectfully, to do what's best for them, and in the process keep morale and productivity high. I really took that part to heart, and I agreed with that part of the article. So part two of our assignment, we were tasked with reviewing other articles about former employee relations and how they relate to our own workplace. Um, as for what I could find, comparing them to my department, as for my uh, as for my department, we do have a pretty structured process for exiting employees. Starting with human resources, they start the process of making sure benefits get closed out as soon as they can. Ideally, you're dealing with an instance of a voluntary exit, uh, so that helps in giving a timetable in order to get paperwork completed, and that helps a lot, I think. We currently have it to whatever month your employment ends, your benefits continue to the end of that month. But before that happens, our human resources make sure that you've got all the information that you need about maintaining your coverage. We are in compliance with COBRA laws, and we make sure everything on that front is covered before it comes to that point. Um, Exit questions. So we do have exit interviews. Some examples of questions we do ask: how did you enjoy your time here? Are there things the department could have done better or differently? What are your thoughts on the department's culture? Pretty standard questions, just to kind of get an air of uh, what a exiting employee, if they have any notes for improvement for the department as a whole. As far as data collection goes, I'm told by my administration that most of the time the data is not saved unless there are items that were addressed that require investigation. Uh, Something like a termination, that would be well documented, and I think that kind of data will be saved just to kind of cover all parties involved. Um, in lieu of anything else that we thought might need changed, after talking with my administration, at this point they're pretty satisfied with the current process. Um, like I said before, issues needing addressed are handled as they arise. In the in the last few years that I've been there, most of the exits are based on things like the employee going back to a private sector type of job, or they just are not able to handle the 48-hour schedule that we have, and it's just not working it's just not fitting into their lives. So nothing, nothing, uh, nothing that would really require documentation. It's just conflict of personal interest, I guess. Um, as for big challenges that are faced with my department in these processes, I'm told that retaining staff is always an issue with this. We always want our people to succeed. We have tried to implement some pretty progressive step programs to kind of find the right kinds of people. Um, the quote at the bottom is from my chief: "Finding staff is not difficult. Finding quality is the challenge." And I think that's kind of cross disciplinary fields. I think everyone can relate to that. I'm not quite sure how closely this relates to the assigned project, but um, I did find something interesting in some of the other articles I looked at. Um, Along with exit interview processes, I was able to find something interesting that I hadn't really considered before. Uh, I found in one article the subject of retention interviews. These interviews might be a useful tool in getting ahead of issues that might make an employee want to leave in the first place. Uh, these these ask questions like, are we helping you be effective in your current position? Are we helping you build a successful career? Are we helping you have a fulfilling life? I think retention interviews can help to address issues before they lead to turnover. This is especially true for high potential employees because these types often leave if they feel the company isn't supporting their growth enough. Uh, and these high potential employees are high value employees, and these are the ones that you're most likely to miss when they're gone. Did some research on reviews of my current organization. This is probably the most challenging part of doing research for this whole project. I spent a lot of time researching, and there just simply are not enough reviews, I feel, to get a good grasp of how my department is viewed, in my opinion. The few that were found were not professional peer reviews, just people from the public. Most were only a star rating with no commentary to follow it at all. The most information in this came from Google reviews. We had 7 total ratings, 6 of which were 5-star ratings, with little dialogue about positive interactions, with little dialogues about positive interactions they had in the past. The other review, funny enough, was a 1-star review of an unhappy customer. But after reading the commentary, I saw that they weren't even reviewing the correct department. It was someone who lived over 30 miles north of our district. I included a few other resources here just to highlight that we did look for some, but just not a big online review presence for us at this time. I can see how having limited reviews could be seen as a good thing. In my opinion, it seems that the vast majority of reviews out there for whatever company or organization involved are either super positive 5-star reviews or super negative 1-star reviews. If this is true, then it could be argued that my department is functioning pretty well at any given time by continuing to function appropriately while at the same time flying under the radar of any extreme interpersonal incidents. Now, of course, you really want to get those 5-star reviews, so this is probably a pretty negative way to look at the lack of total reviews. You definitely want to minimize those instances of 1-star ratings as well, but I think the focus of that is to just not earn those, not necessarily to run and hide from the total number of reviews. While I was disappointed to find such little information on these reviews, I've turned this into a positive thing by realizing that my department could use some work in our online presence. We have our own pretty decent website with a lot of good information and resources on it. And we have a main Facebook account, it's what I would call semi-active. I think that establishing more of a professional presence within some other platforms would behoove us, put ourselves out there a little bit more. When I first started this department, someone asked me how I had heard about the department since I wasn't from the area. I felt bad because I really had no answer for him other than their initial job postings, because if I had not widened my area of my job search, then I probably would have never found this place that I've grown to care about. And that's really too bad because other people out there might have missed out on finding a good place to work because they couldn't find any information on us, whether being good or bad on, researching an employer. So, okay, final slide. These are just some other articles I found relatable besides the Harvard Business article at the beginning we talked about. Other sorts of information that were very helpful to me include my department's human resource specialist and my department's chief. So this concludes my presentation, and I thank you for watching.